Hello, my people of the world. Dee 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 dee. Imagine, if you will, you're an advanced alien humanoid species that is perhaps 1,000,000 years older than the Earth's civilization. And you pick up these radio signals and all these signals, so you decide to send a craft or a probe to scan this planet to find out if it's hostile, occupied by a hostile humanoid, or if it's a civilized population that inhabits this Earth. What would you see, people? First off, you would see, I think, like 4 wars raging on the planet. You would see what are cross-border skirmishes happening here and there. You would see the little strip called Gaza that has just been flattened, and they would know that was from explosives. You would look at our oceans. You would see warships all over our oceans and submarines. You would scan our lands. You would see military bases all over the world. You would see that we live as separate nations, as separate people. You would see that 9 million people starve to death every year on this planet. And you would see we have hundreds, thousands of factories producing goods that are not necessary for life. You would see that even a larger portion of the people on this planet are struggling just to have enough food daily. You would see what appears to be authority figures all over the world using violence against other human beings. You would see that we have buildings that appear to be housing for prisoners, that we have millions of people all over the world in cages for our own kind. You would see in our cities, you would see violence. You would see people abusing one another. You would see little children being forced to do things that little children shouldn't be forced to do. You would see all kind of horrors on this planet. So you know what? At this late date in human history, the human race really should hang its head in shame, because we're a pitiful excuse for a species that has enough intelligence to send probes out into space and to have craft to travel underwater, but we can't master our own behavior, and we can't feed our people, and people have to slave all their life and they'll just barely get by. Yeah, the human race really should hang its head in shame. And you know what they would determine? The obvious conclusion, and this is not debatable, they would conclude that we are an advanced, hostile species that under no circumstances can possibly be allowed to come out into the galaxies. Because if we can't get along with our own species and our own people in our own communities, then they're going to know that they're going to see the greed on this planet, and they're going to know that we can never be allowed to come out into the cosmos, because we would just bring our violence and our greed, and we would want to take whatever these other beings have. So, the reasonable conclusion would be to set this planet back to the Stone Age for its own good, so it can get a restart, a reboot. And perhaps next time around, people will learn how to live properly, which is something else I didn't mention. They would see that we live in a system that depends on constant demand and everything breaking. They would see that we're a throwaway civilization, that we buy something and a few months later it's in a landfill. So they would know we are not only hostile, but we're destructive to the own world we live in, to our own world. So, anyway, think on that for a while. Sleep on it. Because, like I said, the only reasonable conclusion would be to set this planet back to the Stone Age in hopes that next time around we would learn to do better. Well, have a good day, folks. Put that on your hat and sleep on it.